why am I sharing a Mother's Day message today when next Sunday is Mother's Day? Well, that is because I care about you, I love you, and I want you to have a week of preparation. And we'll talk some more about that as we get down toward the end of our study. But we're looking at the servant-minded mom. Now, for those of us that have been in church for more than 5 minutes, you know that servant-minded, servant-hearted, those are terms that we use often. We like those terms. That's a good characteristic to be a servant. We know that the Bible extols servanthood. It puts servanthood in an elevated place, as it should be. That's what God likes servant-minded individuals and servant-hearted individuals. But let me show you something that I found when I was just preparing for our study together, and I might need some help from Matt in the back because this just seems like it's just always giving me trouble. So can I have you? He's gonna maybe fix it right here. Let's see. Let me show you something I found as I was preparing for this study today. Came across this. This is an article from 2019 from a woman named Vandana, if that's her real name, probably not. But she writes this. This is what I saw up top. This Mother's Day, let's stop celebrating sacrifices and unconditional love. Look at the very first paragraph. Next slide for me, please. Look at the very first paragraph, how this opened up. Come Mother's Day. And we see people flood social media platforms with posts and tweets about what their mothers mean to them, given their umpteen sacrifices and unconditional love. Over the years, we have reduced motherhood to sacrifices and love that involves a negation of self, calling it unconditional. My response, bitter much? I don't know what happened in this woman's life, but she does not seem to have a good taste in her mouth when it comes to motherhood. Notice what she says. We get the first little taste of it. Their umpteen sacrifices, like, oh, I'm sick of hearing about all of their sacrifices and unconditional love. Like, who would ever want that, right? She goes on to say, over the years, we have reduced motherhood to sacrifices. Now, this is, as a Bible teacher, is driving me crazy. Reduced motherhood to sacrifices? I think that God, like in the Bible, like for thousands of years, like thousands of years ago, he elevated service and motherhood to a high position. And she's saying, oh, we've reduced it to motherhood. She, obviously, this person doesn't seem to me, at least, I don't know her, but it seems to me that she doesn't have much knowledge of biblical things or biblical worldview, obviously. And then to go on to say, have reduced motherhood to sacrifices and love that involves a negation of self, calling it unconditional. And by the way, just because someone denies themselves and loves other people does not necessarily mean that they have unconditional love. By the way, the two cannot necessarily be the same thing. The Bible says, it teaches us all throughout the scriptures that motherhood and service, really, that those two go hand in hand. But it does tell us that every one of us should be servant-minded, right? That all of us should be considering others, serving other people, not just mothers. But certainly, I think that many of us can agree. Maybe not all of us. I don't know. I don't know your situation. Maybe not all of us, but many of us can agree that when it comes to service, mothers do a pretty good job. They make it look pretty easy. Can we move to the next slide, please, so that we can open up our study here? In our study of 2 Kings chapter 4, we find this woman here, this mother, although she doesn't start out as a mother, we'll see what happens here. We find her ministering to this man called Elisha. Now, verse 8, for 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 8, we read there, now it happened one day that Elisha went to Shunem. Now, Elisha, he was the servant to a man, a prophet called Elijah. And normally when we're talking about Elijah, we just say Elisha, okay? But his name was Elijah, and this guy's name is Elisha. Now, Elisha ended up taking over as the prophet when Elijah was taken up into the sky in a chariot of fire. Talk about dramatic, right? and Elisha took over for him. And it says that Elisha went to a place called Shunem, where there was a notable woman. Now, notable means that she was well known. And she persuaded him to eat some food. So it was, as often as he passed by, he would turn in there to eat some food. And the first thing that we find out about this woman, who's not a mother yet, by the way, the first thing that we find out about this woman is that she is a servant-minded individual, and she serves with hospitality. Stop in and eat. I do not know what it was that she had. I imagine some carne asada, maybe some enchiladas, beans, rice, a little bit of salsa, maybe some tortillas, I don't know. But Elisha comes through town and she says, hey, come in here, I want to feed you. Okay? Come in here, I want to feed you. And she does just that. Now, immediately out of the gate here in verse 8, we begin to see, for many of us, this is the norm. This is what mom does. She feeds people. I had a Hispanic mom, obviously, and there's just always food available in a Hispanic home. Like, why do they just always have food available? Why is that? Some of you, maybe you're not Hispanic, Mexican, whatever you want to call yourself, but maybe you're not, but maybe you have a friend that is, and every time you go to their house, like their mom always is trying to give you some food. And that's the way that this woman was. She's persuaded him to eat some food. Now, this is a quality that we find in a servant-hearted or servant-minded mom. Hospitality. That is something that is, again, exemplified in the scriptures. Let me show you. Matt, would you please, let me try this one more. Was that me or you? That was me. We're going to try this, okay? Let me show you what Paul said to Timothy, 1 Timothy 3:2. It says, a bishop, that's a leader or a pastor. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, temperate, sober-minded, of good behavior, hospitable, able to teach. He said a very similar thing to Titus in Titus chapter 1, verse 8. Hospitality is a quality here in 1 Timothy of a pastor. So it's exemplified in the life of a pastor. A pastor should have that kind of a characteristic, but it's not just the pastor. The point that I'm making here is that, if it's a good thing for the pastor to be that way, it's a good thing for this woman in 2 Kings chapter 4 to be that way, and it's a good thing for your mom to be that way. I say that because some of us may get down on our mom. Like, why are you always trying to feed people? Why are you always welcoming people? I mean, like, inviting people over, man. I'm trying to enjoy my Sunday afternoon and, just play my Switch or, be online or whatever. And, you're always bringing people over, and now we got to be hospitable toward them. It's a good quality. Let me tell you what's a good quality, or even more so. What about your mom being hospitable to you? What about when she's hospitable to you? When she feeds you, provides for you? Now, see, what happens is we go, that's her job. That's what she does. And that's why you and I, for so many years, get to Mother's Day empty-handed. We got nothing for our mom. Oh, thanks, Mom. And she's got to cook her own meal on Thanksgiving, on Mother's Day or whatever. And it's like we got nothing for her because we're going, well, this is what she does. It's just her job. She feeds me. She does my laundry. She's my Uber driver to all the important places that I got to go to, like school and the mall and practice. And it's just what she does. But this woman, like your mom perhaps, and what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to get you to understand today and this week as you head into Mother's Day, we're trying to get you to understand what it is that you have in your mom, or maybe it's your stepmom. And maybe you go, you know what, I don't have a good mom, or I don't have a good stepmom, or my mom's not around. Okay, don't be all bitter and write an article about it. What you do is this. You go, you know what, my mom wasn't this way, or my stepmom's not this way. But you can be that way. You can make a vow and say, you know what, I'm gonna be better. And if you're a guy, you can say, you know what, hey, this is the kind of wife I want, or this is the kind of mom I want for my kids in the future. This is a good thing. And so you can look at it from that direction. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 9, it says this, be hospitable to one another without grumbling. Now, your mom is not perfect. Okay, you're not going to honor her next Sunday because she's perfect. That's not the way this works. We honor people because we love them, because they're special. If we were honoring people because they were perfect, Christmas morning you would be empty-handed, my friend. You would wake up to a box with a piece of coal in it. Because you are imperfect, just like I'm imperfect, just like your mom is imperfect. And maybe once in a while she does it with some grumbling. Maybe because no one ever shows any appreciation. Well, you get a chance. Because I love you, I'm reminding you that next Sunday is Mother's Day. It's an opportunity to show some appreciation. She served Elisha with hospitality. Wonderful characteristic, but that's not all that she did. If this is working, we're going to move on to the next slide. I think I did that. The servant-minded mom is serving with wisdom also. Notice in verse 9 as the story continues, and she said to her husband, look now, I know that this is a holy man of God. There's the wisdom. I can see that this is a holy man of God, this Elisha, who passes by us regularly. Look what she tells her husband, verse 10. Please, let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table and a chair, and a lampstand. So it will be, whenever he comes to us, he can turn in there. She serves her husband now with wisdom. She says, listen, this is a godly man coming through here. We want this man to stop into our house, because when he comes, he brings God's blessing. And it would be a good idea if when he came to town, he didn't have to go stay at the Motel 6. But he could stay right here. We have a little room for him, and put a bed in there, and a candle, and just a little table, and he can stay in here. What we will come to find out in just a few minutes is that it's not just Elisha, but Elisha has a servant named Gehazi. And so she's providing for both of them, but she shares this wisdom with her husband. This is a good thing. Let me ask you something. Does your mom have wisdom? Is your mom oftentimes the rudder in the family? When dad's coming up with all his crazy ideas? This summer, we're going to the Grand Canyon on a road trip. All right, woo, yeah. We're going to do it on horseback. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. We're doing what? And mom's so smooth, like, oh, hold on. There's two types of moms. Like, well, that's a great idea, honey. But did you think about such and such? And, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, we better go in the car. But then there's the other moms that go, are you 10 steps outside of your mind? We are not doing that. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. And then he said, oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. But either way, it's wisdom. Does mom oftentimes seem to have wisdom? And it's like, man, every time you ask her a question, she's got an answer. You're like, man, how do you do that? How do you do that? You have a book with like all the mom answers in it? Or how do you do that? But she always seems to have wisdom. This woman serving her husband with, hey, listen, honey, this is what we should do. We should do this. And we can bless this godly man. And then in turn, he's going to bring the blessing of God on us. And wisdom is always, all throughout the Bible is, again, exemplified. But notice this in Proverbs chapter 8, verse 11. It says, for wisdom is better than rubies. And this is an incredible statement. All the things one may desire cannot be compared with her, with wisdom. In the book of Proverbs, it personifies wisdom as a woman. And it says that nothing can be compared. All the things that you desire. What is it you desire? I mean, in your wildest dreams. In your wildest dreams. When you're watching a Travis Scott video. And you're going, oh man, I wish I had those J's. Or I wish I had those pants. Or I wish I had that car. That nasty woman's dancing on. Oh man, I wish I had this fame or fortune. Whatever as you're in your wildest dreams, as you're dreaming about, oh, I wish I had one of those Maseratis or this or that, he says, wisdom these things cannot be compared with wisdom. All the things that you may desire cannot compare with wisdom. And this woman is sharing wisdom with her husband. Wonderful wisdom. It also says in Proverbs 31, which many of us know to be, the one proverb is like, at every woman's conference, man, you better have Proverbs 31, right? But here it is, Proverbs 31, verse 26. It says that she's talking about the wise woman. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. That was this woman here in 2 Kings chapter 4, serving with hospitality and serving with wisdom. But he doesn't stop there. In verse 11, the story continues here, and we find out that this mom serves selflessly. Verse 11 says, and it happened one day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room and lay down there. Then he said to Gehazi, his servant, call this Shunammite woman. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said to him, say now to her, he tells Gehazi, talk to her, say now to her, look, you have been concerned for us with all this care. Appreciation. He says, what can I do for you? Do you want me to speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army? I mean, see, Elisha evidently knows the king, the royal family, and he knows the commander of the army, royal court. And he says to this woman, listen, you've been taking really good care of us, man. You gave us a bed and a room, candles, and we've got a desk here, and we can stay here and rest. And man, you make us good enchiladas, and you hook us up. And he says, what would you like? He said, if you would like, I can talk to the king on your behalf, or I'll talk to the commander of the army. What would you like? Imagine that. Imagine that. There was just a coronation of a new king, right? In England, just happened a couple days ago. Remember that? Yeah, I don't know if you knew about that. But I want you to imagine you're over there in England, man, and you're over by the palace, Buckingham Palace, right? And here comes the king in his parade, and, he's going by, and he's kind of old and crusty, but, and then imagine that all of a sudden he tells his chauffeur, stop! And he looks out at you, you're standing there waving, I don't know you, but hey, and says, you, young man, young lady, come here. What do you want? You look like a nice person. I'll give you anything you want. Oh, my goodness. First thought that comes to my mind, family, Rolls Royce. Okay? Rolls Royce. I've always liked Rolls Royces. A convertible. I need a convertible. Right? And I can dash around England in my Rolls Royce. Right? And then I'll have it shipped back overseas to over here. And I'll just drive it all throughout Menifee and wave at all the little people. Right? I'd be so cool. Imagine that. Give you whatever you want. And this woman, he says, I can talk to the king for you, or I can talk to the commander of the army. What would you like? And she says this. She answered at the end of verse 13, I dwell among my own people. You go, what does that mean? This is what she says to him. She says, in that phrase, I dwell among my own people, she goes, the royal court. It's not for me. Too bougie. That's not my style. She says, I'm good here in my village. I don't need all that. She says, I don't need nothing. I'm good. 1 Timothy 6:8. Paul said this to Timothy, and having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. We go, amen. As long as it's fancy clothing and really good food. Is that what he meant? No. What he meant was beans and rice in Jesus Christ. I'm good with that. Having food and clothing with these, are you content with those things? Like, I don't need nothing. Don't give me that. When your birthday comes, you go, no, I don't need nothing. Don't worry. But just invite the family over. Let's eat. Let's just have a good time. Don't bring any presents. Christmas, hey, what do you want for Christmas? Nah, nothing. Just, you want to give me something? Give me something. If not, it's not a big deal. Is that you? That's this woman. Let your conduct, in Hebrews 13:5 says this, the writer of Hebrews says, let your conduct be without covetousness. Be content with such things as you have, for he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Is that your mom? Is she just content with what she's got? Like, you know what? I don't need all the new stuff, the fancy stuff. It's not a big deal. I don't need that new water mug, that everybody's getting. Maybe she wants it and then she finds out it's $120. She's like, it's all right. I'll get one from Walmart. Not a big deal. I just use my old one. Is that your mom? A teacher asked a boy this question: suppose your mother baked a pie, and there were 7 of you, your parents and 5 children. The teacher says, what part of the pie would you get? The little boy replied, a 6th. The teacher was puzzled and said, I'm afraid you don't understand your fractions. Remember, there are 7 of you. Yes, teacher, said the boy, but you don't know my mother. Mother would say she didn't want any pie. Is that your mom? Like, dinner was hot tonight. And you say, Mom, can I have 5ths? Right? And she's like, sure, sweetie. And she'll serve you up some food. And maybe she only got 1 serving. Maybe she didn't get enough of it, whatever. But she would gladly give it for her baby. Is that your mom? Go without so that you'll have. That was this Shunammite woman here. The story goes on in verse 14 to say, so he said, what then is to be done for her? So now he's speaking to Gehazi. What should I do for her? She doesn't want anything. And Gehazi answered, actually, she has no son, and her husband is old. Okay? She's got no kids. So he said, call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the doorway. Then he said, about this time next year, you shall embrace a son. And she said, no, my Lord, man of God, do not lie to me. Do not lie to your maidservant. Don't play with me. But the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come, of which Elisha had told her. So now she's blessed with a son. She becomes a mom. And we find out the next quality in this servant-minded mom, it is self-sacrifice. Verse 18, and the child grew. Now it happened one day that he went out to his father, to the reapers. They're out in the field. They're cutting down the crops. And he said to his father, my head, my head. So his father said to a servant, carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon and then died. What kind of Mother's Day message is this, right? But I want you to see something, and the story turns out great. But look at verse 20. I want you to see this. When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then he died. Sat on her knees till noon. We do not know what this woman was doing that morning, because it didn't matter. Whatever she had going on, whatever was important up to that point that her baby boy got there, it was done. It was gone. And all she was concerned with was allowing her baby to sit on her lap, no doubt in her embrace, until noon. She stopped what she was doing in order to comfort and minister to her son. Is that your mom? Let me ask you a question. How many times has your mom waited for you? Stopped what she was doing and waited for you. You're at the mall with your posse, and she's texting you like, hey, I'm here to pick you up. Okay, yeah, I'll be right there. 15 minutes goes by, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Mom's still out there in the parking lot waiting. How many nights has your mom waited in a cold, dark parking lot for you while you were at practice? How many times has your mom sat in the stands, cold weather, raining, whatever, waiting for you to finish up? How many times has your mom pulled up on a Wednesday night, and one of those Wednesday nights where you decided, oh, it's going to be an all-nighter for me and my friends, but she's outside in the parking lot waiting for you, texting you like, hey, I'm here. But you're in here just gabbing it up. She's fine out there. She's got a sweatshirt. Knowing that she has to get up early in the morning, she's got to get up early enough to get yourself breakfast. But you're like, this is okay. I mean, youth ministry, I've been around for a few years, and there have been times where I find, Wednesday night, we're just hanging out, and then we find out that somebody's mom is in the parking lot. I'm like, what are you doing? I love you. Go away. Your mom's outside. Get out of here. Don't have her waiting out there. Why would you do that? Why do we do that? We do that because that's just what mom does. So it makes it okay for us to just step on her. How many times has your mom waited around while you had to retake a test at school, after school, because you didn't study the first time? And now here you are trying to retake a test, and she's out in the parking lot waiting for you. Because she ain't got nothing better to do. No, but then you're going to get home and complain because dinner's not ready yet. I'm starving. Or just give me a Hot Pocket. How many times has your mom set aside what she was doing in order to minister to you? Not sure? She gave up her time to give birth to you. How about that? A little bit of a sacrifice. This mom has no problem. Whatever she was doing that morning did not matter once she saw her baby boy and saw that he was not feeling well. Sit down on mom's lap right here and let me minister to you. No doubt with hugs, no doubt with kisses, no doubt with some prayers over this little boy. And yet we find out sadly in verse 20 that he died. But this mom willing to sacrifice herself. Philippians 2:3, we're well acquainted with it. Paul said this, let nothing be done with selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. He goes on to say, let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others. Is that your mom? Always looking out for you? Always making sure that her baby boy, her baby girl is taken care of? And in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7, Paul, none other than Paul, describing himself to the Thessalonians, uses this picture when he searches for a picture that has to do with gentleness and cherishing. He pictures himself as a mom. That's the highest picture that he can find. But we were gentle among you, as a nursing mother cherishes her own children. That's what a good and godly mom does. Does she do it perfectly? No, because she's not perfect. She's not perfect. We're not looking for perfection. We're reminded today that, you know what, mom's got these qualities, or maybe she's got some of these qualities. Maybe she's got some of these and she's working on the others. But she's doing it better than we are. There's another way that this mom ministered or was a servant-minded mom. It was with determination. I love this one. In verse 21, it says this, and she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, shut the door upon him, and went out. You go, man, what kind of mom is this? Then she called to her husband and said, please, send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come back. And her husband says to her in verse 23, why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath. It's not like a special time to go and sacrifice or anything. Why are you going? And she said, it is well. Now, I do not understand why, again, we're talking about a society or a time, at least a few thousand years back. So why did she tell her husband, when her son was dead, why did she say, no, there's nothing, not a problem? Maybe she thought, I don't want to upset him. She's got something in her mind already, so maybe she's thinking, I don't want to upset him if I don't have to. And so in verse 23, he says, where are you going? She says, it is well. Verse 24, then she saddled a donkey. She saddled a donkey and said to her servant, drive and go forward. Do not slacken the pace for me unless I tell you. Determination. See that? Her baby is dead. She is determined to see a solution here. She saddles the donkey herself. And I don't know the exact situation, but she had this servant who was driving the donkey. I don't know if that meant that the servant was pulling the donkey along. I don't know exactly what it was, but she says to the servant, listen, you drive this donkey and don't slow down. No time to waste. And so she departed in verse 25 and went to the man of God at Mount Carmel. It is believed that the distance between the two was about 45 miles from where she was to Mount Carmel, from Shunem to Carmel, Mount Carmel. So it was in verse 25, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to his servant Gehazi, look, the Shunammite woman, he yelled. And he says to his servant, please run now to meet her and say to her, ask her, is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered to Gehazi, it's fine. It's okay. Now, again, for the life of me, why was she not telling her husband, no, it's not royal? And why did she tell Gehazi, that's fine? Why did she not just tell him? But we find out the rest of the story. Before we do that, I want you to see Proverbs 31 again. Look what it says here. She perceives that her merchandise is good. Her lamp does not go out by night. In other words, determined. She continues working into the night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hand holds the spindle. Those are parts of a sewing machine, an ancient sewing machine. It says that all night long, man, she's working hard. You have no idea, you cannot even fathom how many times your mom has stayed up sleepless nights in order to minister to somebody in her family. Maybe it was you. Maybe she stayed up all night baking because you forgot to tell her that there was a bake sale tomorrow. And you told her at the last minute, and now she's like, okay, I got to stay up. I got to make something. You went to bed and, slept the night away, and woke up, where's my muffins, or where's my cake, or, where's it at? You just went to sleep. You didn't know what she was doing. Or maybe she stayed up late that night in order to sew your uniform or your costume because, man, you better not show up because the coach sees your uniform like that. You're not playing. You're going to be sitting on the bench, and she stayed up to make sure that it was taken care of. Putting on patches or mending holes, or maybe it was a costume for a play, or some Halloween thing that you wanted to do, and she stayed up late and sewed all of those things, put them all together. You just went to bed like, she'll be fine. That's what she does. She's the house servant. That's what a good mom does. She was determined. Her lamp didn't go out by night, and that was this woman. She says, "Hey, drive on. Let's go. Let's get there." I like how it continues here in verse 21. I'm sorry, down in verse 27, where we see her next characteristic, the servant-minded mom, serves in humility. Now, when she came to the man of God at the hill, so she leaves her husband back, she passes up Gehazi, she goes to Elisha. Look at this in verse 27. Now, when she came to the man of God at the hill, she caught him by the feet. What does that mean? It means that when she got there, she fell down on her stomach, on her knees, on her face, and grabbed his feet. All of that fear and frustration, anxiety, finally, she breaks down. She grabs his feet, and this is what she says. It says, but Gehazi came near to push her away, but the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress. I like Elisha. Sensitive, aware. I like that. And the Lord has hidden it from me, he said, and has not told me. I don't know what's going on. So she says to him in verse 28, did I ask a son of you? Didn't I tell you, do not lie to me? And all of a sudden, Elisha realizes what's going on. See, this woman is saying, didn't I tell you I didn't need anything? I dwell with my own people. You gave me a son. I didn't ask for a son. Why would you give me a son and then take him away like this and break my heart? She pours it all out on him, humbly. But there's also some determination mixed in there. And so in verse 29, then he, that's Elisha, said to Gehazi, get yourself ready and take my staff in your hand and be on your way. Now what happens from this point on is strange, okay? Strange. But don't let it freak you out. I want you to understand this. We're not talking about a doctor visit here. You understand? This is not a doctor visit. This is a prophet visit. Sometimes prophets do things differently. Sometimes God does things differently. And so in verse 29, he says, take my staff and be on your way. If you meet anyone, do not greet. Don't stop to talk to anyone. And if anyone greets you, do not answer him. Just keep moving. But lay my staff on the face of the child. What? I told you, this is the way a prophet operated. And the mother of the child said in verse 30, remember, talking about humility, but there's also some determination here. In verse 30, she says, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So he arose and followed her. You go, well, what's going on? Elisha says this to Gehazi, hey, not a problem. Take my staff, get back to Shunem. When you get there, just lay my staff on the face of the child, and God will take care of it. This woman says, no. She says, I'm not leaving. I will not leave you. I'm not leaving until you get up and you go to Shunem. And I'm going to be with you the entire time. Let's go. You have a mom like that? You have a mom like that? Principal. No, coach. You don't say that to my son. You don't say that to my daughter. You don't talk to them that way. You got one of those moms, one of those crazy moms? She'll just come out of the house all busted up. Been doing housework all day. Been in the house all hot, hair all frizzy. She's wearing chanclas with socks. And she found out that the neighbor said something to her baby. Doesn't care. And she comes marching out the house, right? Like a hen, mother hen like this. What did you say? What did you say to my son? What did you say to my daughter? And she is ready to throw down in the street. And you say, Mom, we're Christians. She's like, get out of my way, boy. Get out of my way. And she is ready to fight for her baby. Do you have one of those moms? Crazy moms. Crazy moms. That's this mom. She tells Elisha the prophet. This man used to walk around with Elijah, who killed the prophets of Baal. Elisha is no joke. She says, no, that's fine. You want to send Gehazi, you go ahead, but I'm not leaving till you get up and let's go. She was humble, but there's also some determination mixed in there, that's for sure. I'm going with you. Let's go. Now Gehazi went on ahead of them. So Elisha's like, oh, okay, I'm getting up, you know. Now Gehazi went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Therefore he went back to meet him and told him, saying, the child has not awakened. When Elisha came into the house, this gets weird. It's not a doctor visit, it's a prophet visit. When Elisha came into the house, there was the child lying dead on his bed. And he's like, boy, you better get up off of my bed. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say that. But it says in verse 33, he went in, therefore, shut the door behind the two of them, and prayed. Don't forget that. He prayed to the Lord. He prays to the Lord. You need to remember that because of what happens next. And he went up and lay on the child, put his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. And he stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. And we go, well, of course he did. This man is laying on him. What it's indicating there is that he came back to life. And it says in verse 35 that he returned. That's Elisha. And he walked back and forth in the house. No doubt he must have been praying because the child's flesh became warm, but the boy is not revived yet. And again went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. Maybe Elisha was dusty. I don't know. 7 times. And the kid opens his eyes like, hey, why are you laying on me? You know, I don't know. I don't know what the kid first said, but he's like, what? And then it says in verse 36 that he called Gehazi and said, call this Shunammite woman. So he called her. And when she came into him, he said, pick up your son. Sounds funny, huh? Sounds like, get your son off my bed. I'm sure that's not what he meant. So she went in, fell at his feet, humility, and bowed to the ground, humility, to honor Elisha. Then she picked up her son and went out. Incredible, incredible. Proverbs 3:34 says that surely he scorns the scornful, but gives grace to the humble. Humility, again, exemplified. Colossians 3:12, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, and long suffering. That was this woman. Let me share something with you. In verse 8, she served Elisha with hospitality. In verses 9 and 10, she served her husband with wisdom. In verses 18 through 37, she served her son with sacrifice, determination, and humility. In verses 11 through 17, when given the opportunity to serve herself, said, I dwell among my own people. Is that your mom? Is that your mom? Like, I don't need anything. It's all right. I'm good. I don't need anything. I'm fine. Right here. That's been many of our moms. That was my mom. Always putting myself and my sisters and even her husband first, my dad. Poet Lucretia Maria Davidson, back in the early 1900s, composed this poem concerning her own mother. Keep in mind, this is the early 1900s, and so some of the language is a little bit hard to understand, but I'll read it slowly. But I think that it tells us well, it reminds us well. She does a good job of reminding us what moms are. She says, O thou whose care sustained my infant years and taught my prattling lip each note of love, whose soothing voice breathed comfort to my ears, to my fears, and round my brow hope's brightest garland wove. To thee my lay is due, the simple song, which nature gave me at life's opening day. To thee these rude, these untaught strains belong, whose heart indulgent will not spurn my lay. Oh, say, amid this wilderness of life, what bosom would have throbbed like thine for me? Who would have smiled responsive? Who in grief would ever have felt and feeling grieved like thee? Who would have guarded with a falcon eye each trembling footstep or each sport of fear? Who would have marked my bosom bounding high and clasped me to her heart with love's bright tear? Who would have hung around my sleepless couch and fanned with anxious hand my burning brow? Who would have fondly pressed my fevered lip in all the agony of love and woe? None but a mother, none but one like thee, whose bloom has faded in the midnight watch, whose eye for me has lost its witchery, whose form has felt disease's mildew touch. Yes, thou hast lighted me to health and life by the bright luster of thy youthful bloom. Yes, thou hast wept so oft over every grief, that woe hath traced thy brow with marks of gloom. O then to thee, this rude and simple song, which breathes of thankfulness and love for thee. To thee, my mother, shall this lay belong, whose life is spent in toil and care for me. Is that your mom? Always giving, always sacrificing, always looking out for you and your dad and everybody else. Friends come over, she puts them, she's taking care of them, making sure they got something to eat or they're cared for. Is that your mom? If it is, you need to be thankful. If it's not, I understand. Family situations, it's not always ideal. But you can always do better. You can make a vow today, no, I'm going to do better. But if that's your mom, you have an opportunity to honor her next Sunday, one day out of the year, to say, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. I'm telling you this. I'm going to share something with you. Honestly, I'm not trying to guilt you out. That's not the way that we work around here. But I'm telling you this. Your mom is going to be gone before you know it. You think that she's eternal. She is not. And she will be gone before you know it. And you will have regrets. Everybody does. But what you want to do is minimize those regrets. You don't want to spend all of your time after she's gone going, oh man, I should have. You want to say, you know what, I did spend time with her and I loved her and should have done more, but I didn't do enough. You want to minimize those regrets. You want to recognize that your mom is a blessing to you, given to you, or maybe your stepmom, blessing to you. And maybe she's not perfect. Maybe she doesn't have all of these qualities, but maybe she's got some. Maybe she's working on the others. Everybody's a whip, right? A work in progress. Everybody. So you're not looking for perfection. Now, let me share something with you in case you didn't win one of these books and you go, well, man, what am I going to do? I ain't got any money. Let me tell you, you want to do a couple of things. Number one of a couple of things. Here's what you can do. Take this from a former son. I'm trying to help you out, okay? Trying to help you out. This week, what you could do is stop to recognize all the things that she does for you this week. Don't say anything to her. Just take note of it. Write them. No, she did my laundry, or man, she made me breakfast, or she cooked, or she took me to school, or she gave me a ride to the mall, or to practice, or she waited outside. Man, she was in the bleachers all while I was at the whatever. You take note of that, and then this week, ask your dad for a card, some money to buy a card. If you tell your dad, hey, I want to buy mom a Mother's Day card, he's going to be ecstatic. He's going to be excited for two reasons: because you're ready to appreciate your mom. He's also going to be ecstatic because you will have reminded him that Mother's Day is Sunday. And he's going to go, oh, that's right. Here's $20. Pick one up for me too. Maybe you can't get any money. Maybe your dad's like, no, I'm not giving you no more money, man. Okay? That's all right. Whether you get a card or get a piece of paper, don't type it. Don't type it. Use your own handwriting. Write slow. It'll come out nicer. Guys, okay? And here's what you do. This week, you write out, hey, Mom, I noticed that you did such and such for me on Monday. And on Tuesday, you did this. And on Wednesday, you did this. And on Thursday and Friday, on Saturday, Sunday morning, hey, Mom, happy Mother's Day. I got something for you. And if it's a card, great. But even if it's just a piece of paper, maybe folded up or whatever, you give that to her. I guarantee you, I put a money back guarantee. You give that to her, it's going to be better than flowers. It's going to be better than jewelry. It's going to be better than chocolates. It's going to be better than the Mother's Day dinner that she has to cook for herself. It's going to be better than all of that stuff. She's going to treasure that. That's going to be one of her cherished treasures, because she's going to realize, even if it's just for a moment, that you noticed, you appreciate it. It's going to bless her. And that's what we want to do. We want to be thankful to God for our moms, and we want to thank our moms also for all that they do. Father, thank you so much for